Welcome back to Gravity this season. We're here at the Sporting Club at the Aventine in San Diego, California, at their beautiful tennis courts here. I've been working with Kara a little bit on the serve, so that's what we're going to cover today is the serve. Now I'm only going to, I'm not smart enough to be able to coach somebody to serve better. What I'm better at is looking at what's happening at one component of the body, particularly in all three planes during one component of the sport. So I'm going to leave the skills component to the tennis coach. I, as the trainer, I'm going to focus more on the foundation or the functional foundation that we talked about to create enough mobility and enough stability in the trunk, for example, to create a powerful serve that's going to make Kara another champion. So I was just working with Kara before we turned the camera on, and what we want to do with you live is to break down what's going on at the trunk during the serve. So if we break it down into three planes of motion, that's a real easy way to learn how the body works, because you'll see how it loads before it explodes. And if we see how it loads or lengthens, then we know exactly where our concentric exercises need to be. So what we're going to have Kara do, because she's awesome at it, is she's just going to serve, maybe 5-10 serves. And what we want you to do, it's tough to see with the jacket on, but try to figure out, even if you're at home, mimicking this action as you're watching this on a little tiny screen, what happens at the trunk. And if you just write the words S for sagittal, F for frontal, and T for transverse, we're going to fill in the blanks for each one of those. Sagittal, frontal, transverse. So, Kara, you ready? Where do you guys get a load of this? All right. There you go. Oh, you got another one in there, huh? Secret ball. So as she's doing this, let's start with the sagittal plane. As she reaches back, she launches it up, and we see really nice lengthening in the sagittal plane of the trunk. Remember, we're not looking at anything else but here. So she's got lengthening of the trunk. Awesome. That way you know that the abs, the core, is all involved. Let's go to frontal now. And it's a little bit tough to see where you're at, but for where I'm at, and if you're at home trying to figure this out, I can see a little bit, doesn't have to be a lot, it's just enough to turn the proprioceptors on, and she's getting lateral trunk flexion to the right. So right now, she's doing this, and she's doing this. Very good. So it's extension and extension with lateral flexion. All right, she's starting to beat up, this little sweat now, so let's get to that transverse plane pretty quick. So as you see with the transverse plane, we're going through right rotation so that we can explode to left rotation. We always like to bring in our friends over at the Miramar Air Station. We've got F-18s flying around us right now. It brings a little more excitement to this. How you feeling, Kara? Okay, so let's head to the GTS. Now what's kind of exciting here is now I know I want to work on eccentrically lengthening and flexing at the trunk. I want to trunk rotate to the left, all while walking to the GTS. And then we're also going to do the frontal plane, which is lateral flexion. So we're going to start off with the sagittal plane. So we'll go right into our crunches. So I'm going to get the machine set up. We know the three-step process is equipment setup, client positioning, and then movement with variations. I want to get my pulley set up. Kara, you can dump your racket off somewhere. You've already done that. And I'm just going to have you come into a lying supine position. So have a seat here. Bring your feet up to the squat stand. All the meanwhile, I've got full control of the glide board. We're going to go to where you're lying on your back first. She wants the frontal plane. She's like, I'm ready to do lateral flexion. So here we are here. I'm going to have her kind of shimmy up a little bit so her head's at the top. So just kind of let the glide board come up and just bring your feet just in the edge of the board here. There you go. You can bring them on the squats or the rails. And now I want you to slide your body up just a little bit further. There you go. Okay, now I just want your heels just on there. Now you're going to go arms overhead. How's that feel just to be there? Especially right after a little bit of tennis. You've been kind of fighting that concentric. So what we're going to do is just get a slight bend in the elbow. Just a slight bend. And I want you to kind of come over in an arching motion towards my hands and reach up all the way up to the knees, and then go all the way back in a nice arching motion. So with the sagittal plane, just go ahead and repeat that. We're driving her into eccentric lengthening by using her arms overhead, and then she concentrically explodes up, so we're getting a lot of flexion. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, she can just keep going, is that when you watch that serve again, and you go back and watch it maybe a second time, and you look at what the tossing hand is doing, is, go ahead and hold there just for a second, is when she throws the ball up, when she launches it up, what's that doing to the trunk? That hand that's tossing the ball is helping to facilitate a lengthening through the trunk. So I always thought that was kind of neat to see, because the body figures all that stuff out. We don't have to mentally think, I need to throw a ball with left hand up to eccentrically load trunk. Feeling okay? Yep. Okay, so we've gone through, let's just imagine we've gone through a couple sets of those. Now the focus is on the flexion, but we want to also be able to extend. But for now, we're going to combine the sagittal plane with that transverse plane. So what I'm going to have her do is, just like that right arm as it's coming across, we're going to rotate across and flex at the same time. So you're going to kind of come overhead a little further, take your right hand and bring it all the way up and over to this opposite side. Good, and then all the way back. So we're eccentrically loading and then concentrically exploding. And this is a lot different than a tennis serve, but it's the same motion. It's a different stimulus because we've got resistance training. Obviously the speed is different, and there's no racket in her hand, which she probably would rather have a racket attached to the end of the cable. Then we'd be playing tennis. Let's go one more. Very good. Go ahead and take a break there. The key here is to bring the shoulder and head up off the board and rotate to the left for a right-handed tennis player. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take these from you. If you want to balance that out with the opposite hand, with the left hand going across, that's absolutely fine. Now what we're going to do is go into, I'm going to make an equipment change, so you can go ahead and stand up. We've got tennis balls all over the place. It's like romper room. All right, I'm going to take the pulley, put it up in the pulley pocket, and we've kind of covered the flexion, the sagittal plane. We've covered some of the combo flexion and rotational plane or transverse plane. Now we're going to go into a frontal plane movement. So I'm going to have you're going to lie on your side, your hip will be here, your feet will be down on that squat stand. Good, so get kind of comfortable on there. Your legs will be straight the entire time. And what you do is you're here, we're going to use the incline for an assistance, is I want to see a lateral flexion. So she's just going to lift up just a bit, just to turn the proprioceptors on, then come back and just repeat. She's trying to keep in this nice frontal plane. Good, perfect. And we know it's working. I can feel the muscles working. So head's a nice neutral extension of the spine, just kind of stays in line with the spine. And you can tweak this by going both arms overhead. You're not going to like this one. We'll just do it for one example. Arms overhead, and then you're going to do that same move. Good, so that's good. Basically what that does is extends the lever out. You can go back to crossing the arms across the chest. And let's do one more of those. And then if you want to tweak it down, you can take your left hand and reach towards my hand and just come and get me here. So that's going to provoke a lateral flexion move throughout the trunk here. Very good. You can go ahead and stand up or have a seat, relax for a moment. Now we do have, obviously, I didn't do some of the obvious stuff that you might do with your client, which would be bringing the machine down and doing your trunk rotation. I just kind of assume you're going to be doing that. When you're doing those trunk rotations, remember if it's more for a forehand or if it's for a serve, it's based on where your hands are. What we're focusing on today is what's happening at the trunk. So we know that if we want to just work on rotation, because if we break down this serve again, let me jump off here and grab this. As we're coming back, we're extending through the trunk. We got that covered. As we come back, let me give you a better angle. And I'm doing this, you can see that I'm lengthening across the left side of my body, so I'm laterally flexing to the right. And then we do the tricky one, which is transverse plane, where I serve the ball, I come up here, and you can see that this hand drives me into right rotation. So we're covering all those. So with the trunk rotation, you can almost just kind of hop on the GTS, grab a cable from the lateral, and go into trunk rotation to the left with an emphasis on lengthening to the right. So you want to look and see, do they maintain control back here in that small range of motion? If they're in a kneeling position, they can get their pelvis going with them a little bit more. So you can integrate the entire body. All your lateral movement can be combined or used with the kneeling lateral position. You can use the back cable, the front cable. Today I would say let's use the back top pulley position to really crank us around to get that trunk to rotate so that we can concentrically explode through the transverse plane. Lateral trunk flexion. We did do some of this side lying exercise where we laterally flex to the left, but don't forget that part of that movement is to laterally flex to the right. I'm sorry. Yes, we laterally flex to the left. The eccentric phase of that is to eccentrically lengthen. So perhaps you might step and do some lunging exercises where you lengthen the trunk on the left side. So you could do a lunge series and just drive the body over to the right side, and you'll get a real nice lengthening. Start to put a weight in their hand, weights overhead, medicine ball, any type of tweak to progress the program. So it's start light, just with the motion, then start to integrate a lunge, or just have them stand up with a weight and work on that frontal plane motion. You can identify through one of those 3 planes where they're strong, where they might need some coaching, and if you stick with that plan or that kind of attack of the body where you look at one component, look at the 3 planes, you can start to look at the hip in 3 planes. You can start to look at the shoulder in 3 planes, the knee, the ankle, all this stuff works. We'll cover some of that down the road, but with this being the tennis, the serve, kind of the shotgun start to the match, I hope that these principles, strategies, and techniques help you, and I'd like to say that I've learned a lot of these from the Gray Institute, help you become a better coach or a better trainer with tennis athletes. See you next time.